Wednesday night was horrible. Mum rang Grandma to proudly tell her how grown up I was looking all of a sudden. Grandma asked Mum if she could have the hair after I'd finished with it. Grandma likes to knit. Apparently she'd run out of wool for a cardigan she was making. I wasn't so keen on this idea at all. Plus, it turns out that being hairy is generally very unpleasant. Firstly, I was roasting hot. It was like being wrapped in a thick, scratchy sleeping bag. As a result, Mum suggested that I take off my t-shirt. But then, at tea time, I got loads of food caught in my fur, which was disgusting. Trust me, nothing kills your appetite like finding a sticky lump of macaroni cheese in your hairy belly button. I could barely even manage my fourth donut after that. Things got worse at bedtime. I just couldn't sleep. Not only was I overheating, but when I did finally fall asleep, I had a dream that I was turned into a were-donkey. I woke up sweating in my bed at 3 in the morning. Unable to get back to sleep, I decided to do a silly thing. I took out my tablet and Googled Bold Away Anti-Baldness Cream. I immediately wished I hadn't done this. Here's a good lesson. If you're worried about something, do not ever search for it on the internet. The internet is basically just a massive pile of information designed to scare the bejesus out of you. I found out some terrible things. There was an article about how Bold Away had been banned in 48 countries. This was after some people showed alarming side effects after using it. These side effects included loss of teeth, rotting of the head, I tried not to think much about that one, blueness of the skin, and perhaps most worryingly, some mild feather growth. By the way, I'm not sure how any feather growth on a human might be described as mild. Surely even one feather would be pretty serious, wouldn't it? I can't imagine a doctor saying, "Don't worry, Mrs. Garstang, your son might be turning into an ostrich, but it's only a mild case of feathers." No, just a tip. A spoonful of cowpea down the back of his beak and he'll be fine in the morning. I can't imagine that happening. At the end of the article, it said that these side effects were rare and that it only affected like 0.001% of users of Bold Away. This should have made me feel better, but it didn't. There was still a small chance that this was going to happen. It was bad enough being hairy without worrying that Gamble had fed me 5,000 doses of something that could turn me into a toothless bluebird with a rotting head. I stayed awake in bed, tossing and turning until the morning. At 7 o'clock on Thursday, I wandered yawning into school with Vanya. The rest of the class was slowly gathering in the hall at 7 o'clock. "Are you okay?" she asked. "You look terrible." "Thanks," I replied. "I haven't grown any feathers, have I?" Vanya looked at me strangely. No, just the fur." Phew. The article had said that all the terrible side effects happened in the first 12 hours after taking it. I felt like I was safe. Hairy, but safe. The sprinkler system had been fitted in the school now, so we were allowed back in the hall. There were little red shower heads dotted all around the ceiling. These shower heads were connected to pipes which led to an enormous water tank that had been put into the caretaker's office. In the case of a fire in the hall, a heat sensor would turn on the sprinklers and put out the flames. They were going to be fitted around the rest of the school next week. When most of the class had arrived, Mr. Ligong strode in and stood above us on the stage. Today he was wearing a purple cloak and one of those hats that monkeys wear when they're playing the cymbals. His face was grave. "I have reached a difficult and a terrible decision." "You're going to stay on and teach us for the rest of the year?" whispered Vanya under her breath. This made me laugh. "This afternoon was supposed to be our dress rehearsal," he carried on, not really listening to her. But due to the lack of money caused by Sprinkler over there, everyone now turned to look at me. Beneath my beard, I could feel myself turning red. I have decided that. He looked up, stuck out his chin and swallowed back a tear. Our play must be cancelled. Most people celebrated at this. I could hear people going, yes! Except for Rosie, that is. She went absolutely banana crazy. What do you mean, cancelled? What about my big break? What about the film and TV people? You wait till I tell my father. He'll... Alas, said Mr. Legonk. How can we do my script justice without proper money? Can we do the Brussels sprout boogie instead? Asked Vanya. Mr. Legonk looked as though she'd just asked him if we could dance around the stage with nothing but chicken nuggets balanced on our heads. Good grief, no, we're not going back to that dance. How should I inflict such utter rubbish onto the audience? No, you will not be performing anything. Oh, whined the class. That's not fair. Rosie was already on the phone to her dad, demanding that he call the police immediately and have Mr. Legonk arrested for murdering her dreams. The rest of the class were muttering to each other and throwing their arms up in the air and looking generally fed up. Clearly, most people hated this crazy play, but they wanted to do something. Not me, though. I was the only person who felt completely happy about this decision. I was delighted that we weren't going on stage at all. This feeling didn't last long, though. My happiness was interrupted with a beep, beep, beep noise from outside. A dirty blue transit van was slowly reversing towards the fire doors at the back of the hall. Mr. Legonk strode to the back and flung the door open. What is the meaning of this? Just then the doors at the back of the van opened up and Darren Gamble was standing inside the back of it, surrounded by what seemed to be an enormous mountain of rags. Not missed anything, have I? He grinned. Gamble's Uncle Terry hopped out of the driver's seat of the van. Between him and Gamble, they hauled the mountain of rags out of the van and into the hall, dumping them in the middle of the floor in front of a very speechless Mr. Legonk. When they'd finished, Uncle Terry clapped his hand onto Mr. Legonk's shoulder. Whatever happens, you didn't get these from me. Got it? Mr. Legonk looked completely confused. Before jumping in his van and speeding away, Uncle Terry ruffled Gamble's hair and told him, be good. Yeah, right. Gamble's idea of being good is to only chop off one of your arms. Mr. Legonk went over to the pile of rags and began to pick them up. There were all sorts of things there, pirate outfits, sparkly princess dresses, even a banana costume. Where did you find all of this? I can't tell you that. It's a secret, innit? Said Gamble, tapping his nose. But then he kind of ruined this by adding, but if you must know, Uncle Terry broke into a theatre in town and robbed the costume department last night. It's probably worth saying here that Gamble's Uncle Terry is a serious criminal. As well as many other things, he's been arrested for robbing shops, beating up cars, not the drivers, the cars, and kidnapping. In fairness to Uncle Terry, he didn't realise he was actually kidnapping someone. They just happened to be using a portaloo at the exact moment when he stole it from the building site. I gulped. This wasn't good. Among all the other clothes, I recognised one. Madame Boom Boom's towering blue wig from the pantomime that started this whole problem.